How's it going, guys? Today's video, I'll be discussing the album F sharp, A sharp, Infinity, an album by Godspeed You, Black Emperor. This is an obscure album by an obscure band, if you count 250 monthly listeners as obscure, but that's not the point. This video is based off of what I believe the message of the album is trying to convey, as well as the theories I believe surrounding it. I'm not going to be discussing the band in any way, but if you are interested after watching this video or listening to the album personally yourself, by all means, listen to all of their other projects, as well as just look into the band yourself. I would also like to say, before watching this video, I would highly recommend you just pause it and give the whole album a full listen. It's only an hour long, there's 3 songs, and if you watch the video, you won't have that first-hand experience of listening to it for the first time like how I did. And without further ado, let's get into the first song of the album, that being The Dead Flag Blues. Song opens up with a melancholic instrumental and a poem being recited by Ephraim Menak. I think that's how you say his name. It goes by this.
The car is on fire, and there's no driver at the wheel. And the sewers are all muddied with 1,000 lonely suicides. And a dark wind blows. The government is corrupt. And we're on so many drugs with the radio on and the curtains drawn. We're trapped in the belly of this horrible machine, and the machine is bleeding to death. The sun has fallen down, and the billboards are all leering, and the flags are all dead at the top of their poles. It went like this. The buildings toppled in on themselves. Mothers clutching babies picked through the rubble and pulled out their hair. The skyline was beautiful on fire. All twisted metal stretching upwards. Everything washed in a thin orange haze. I said, "Kiss me, you're beautiful. These are truly the last days." You grabbed my hand, and we fell into it, like a daydream or a fever. We woke up one morning and fell a little further down. For sure it's the valley of death. I open up my wallet, and it's full of blood.
The poem describes in the first stanza as how the government is corrupt and people are becoming drunks to suppress and blind themselves as to what's going on around them. They're in the belly of this machine, and it's being controlled by the government. Can't do nothing but be helpless, and some even take their lives knowing that they can't do nothing to get out of it. After all of this, war tears the landscapes, with buildings tumbling in on themselves, with innocent people flocking the streets, picking their loved ones out of the rubble, and others watch as the skyline is set ablaze. The only thing people can do is be with the ones they love and embrace them, whether that be the ones that just passed or the ones closest to you. All those lives lost just for the money in your wallet to be nothing but blood or dying and worth absolutely nothing. After this, the song fades out and then picks right up as a train horn is blaring in the distance. Another key part of why I love this album so much is not just the lyrics in it, but the way that the instrumentals play a story. In this part of the song, the world does not sound like it's one with itself, with sirens blaring and the instrumental slowly caving in on itself, like it's going down a downward spiral. In this next part of the song, there's lots of influence with the Wild West, or at least some sort of instrumental type deal with that. And this is very evident throughout the whole album. I feel as though that this is symbolism for how the Wild West used to be. No laws, bandits, robbers, the corrupt just roaming the land. It's just slowly showing society becoming more and more apocalyptic. This next part of the song and the final part of the song feels like sort of like a toss-up, just out of the blue. It's a stark contrast to what we've been listening to, this depressive, sad, drawn-out music, and this comes in with a more uplifting tone to it. It confused me the first time I listened through it, but after listening throughout it all, it made total sense as to why this was implemented, and we'll get back to that later. But we're gonna get to the next song called East Hastings. East Hastings starts off more uplifting as a centralized tone to the rest of the song, with a preacher who is preaching the Lord's word. He's saying that we need to put our faith in Jesus. For if you don't even care about the world, you can still care for Jesus. Implementing this religious tone over a bagpipe version of an instrumental of the Dead Flag Blues, which is more upbeat. I feel as though the reason why we're hearing these religious implications in this song is, in the past song, we were able to visualize what people were seeing. We were seeing people being picked out of rubble, dying, and no hope left in them. But this song, or what the preacher is saying, allows us to see what people are feeling inside. For they might feel lost, but they can still have their faith in God if all else fails. After the preacher is faded out, a more ominous tone that's more familiar to the past tracks rolls in, setting us back to the more apocalyptic theme of the album. with more of a rock presence at the start, but as orchestra is slowly implemented. It starts off slow with a guitar plucking the strings, and then a drum slowly fading in, and then an orchestra slowly building up this tempo, building it and building it until a whole band collectively joins in, creating this Wild West type feel like you're in an action movie. Also, at the end of the song, a distorted, more radio type voice comes through, and he repeats the saying, "They have a large barge with a radio antenna tower on it, that they would have to charge it up and discharge." I'm thinking at first that this was some sort of metaphor for people with wealth sending out a signal as a means of confirmation for delivery for money, as means of aiding the corrupt government or aiding in the apocalypse. A barge, for those who don't know, is like one of those shipping vessels that carry all the shipment containers on it. Extremely valuable stuff out there. But after looking through it more, I feel as though it's some sort of symbolism for a distress call, where they're conserving power and turning it off every so often so they can at least have that sense of hope of sending out a signal. Reason why I believe this is in the background of the song, the instrument is playing this cacophony of confusing tones and sounds, such as a man whistling and a baby crying in the distance, as well as just cries in general being drowned out by this whirlwind of random noises that just slowly drowns it out until it becomes background noise and just the instruments are prevalent. Now, for the last song out of the three is called Providence. The song starts off with two men having a conversation about what the preacher man says. What the preacher man is saying is that the world is coming to an end, saying that American rivers are going to dry up, and interest is up, and the stock market is crashing. Later, they talk about how people, if you're not careful where we're walking, they're gonna rob you. While they're having this conversation, a homeless woman asks them for change, which they decline. The homeless woman could be symbolism that the preacher man's prediction is coming to effect, such as the effect of homelessness on the rise. I know it's a shot in the dark, but everything that's going on with the album and what we already know that has happened, and this being somewhat of past life, it sort of proves what the preacher man was initially saying. Another thing, at the end of their conversation, the man says that he does not go by what the preacher man says. This could be his loss of faith in God, or he is ignorant to see what is going on around him. But his friend agrees with him. After this, the instrumentals sounds like a clock ticking. It could be symbolism that only time could tell if the predictions of the preacher were true or not. And from the first song, it's safe to say that they were. After the clock fades out, an orchestra plays, reminiscent of the past tracks. Then, a more upbeat tone becomes evident, and yet again with Western ties to it. The instrumental, in my opinion, sort of feels like someone lost in the world but is determined to get on the right track, to push through the barriers. As that fades out, what sounds like an echoing, distorted voice comes through and sounds like more of a religious dialogue, talking about how we are unworthy for us to be sheltered in your arms, how we are sinless never to be, This is saying that we will always sin and how we are unworthy. But this person brightens their night and pulls them from the valley of sins and is their path in light. In my opinion, this continues what the preacher says in the past song, with people putting their faith in Jesus Christ and washing their sins from them. For they know that they are not worthy of joining God, for they have sinned. But from their sins being washed away by Jesus, they are guided to the path of light, being heaven. After this, more Western music rolls in and fades out. And afterwards, a person is repeating the saying, "Where are you going?" multiple times. After which, the music plays these ominous instrumentals. I feel as though that this is symbolizing death for the person we're hearing out of. And then afterwards, the music fades out and there's a 3-minute silence. I feel as though that this is symbolizing the person we're listening from. This is them dying, which afterwards, ominous but more beautiful sets of instrumentals, which could mean light or heaven that they're going towards. The drums start playing and a whole band joins in, sending in one last song before the end. Now, this is the one and only thing that I will say I feel as though I have a problem with the album itself. It's not even a problem. I feel like it was a artistic directive for doing it, but I feel as though that the songs are not in proper order. And what I mean by this is I feel as though Providence, the last song that we just went over, should be the first song, due to it explaining and it setting itself before the war, explaining what's going on with the world, how interest rates are going up, as well as the stock market is crashing, and homelessness is overall taking an effect, and how the preacher is declaring these things such as American rivers are going to dry up, which could symbolize the war and its effects. And the man at the end of the song, where he's asking the question, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" could symbolize the start of the war and a person that just died and a loved one asking them, "Where are you? Where are you going?" The next song should be the Dead Flag Blues, which is a descriptive poem mainly talking about the fate of all these people, thousands of lonely suicides, mothers pulling their babies out of rubbles, the system or the belly of the machine just bleeding out. And the last song should be East Hastings, because at the end of it all, people are putting their faith in God, asking Him to save them, to bring them aid in their time of need, shedding new hope for people to pull themselves out of what the rich and powerful put them in. In conclusion, I believe that F sharp, A sharp infinity is a story about the government failing its people, causing wars to break out, killing thousands upon thousands over money. And the only thing people can do in this apocalypse is put their faith in God. And the only thing that they can trust is God, asking them in their time of need for help. Thank you for watching or listening to this video. There's really not been any visuals. I've never made any sort of music type video, or I don't know, what would you call this, an essay? I just felt as though that if at least one person was interested in listening to this, they could spread it out to more people, because I feel as though this album deserves way more recognition than what it has. Like, this album is so fucking good, I'm not even joking, and it's worth just sitting down and listening to the whole thing. It really does put a good perspective on it, and it allows you to feel as though you understand what's going on with the messages behind the songs. So yeah,